If you were asked to picture an image of Valentine's Day, you might think of exchanging gifts, spending a day with a loved one, the many assorted chocolate gifts, or maybe even rejection and loneliness. But what I bet you didn't imagine were ritualistic sacrifices, martyrs, whippings. But these are the true origins of Valentine's Day. And to understand how this holiday has transformed so much, we have to go far back in time to the 3rd century to remember how this holiday started. Many factors contribute to the evolution of Valentine's Day into the holiday it has become today. The earliest form of the holiday can be traced back to the ancient Roman fertility festival, Lupercalia, which was held annually from February 13th through the 15th. It's unknown exactly when this festival started, but scholars place its origins in the 6th century BC. The festival's origins aren't officially known, but one of the common ideas has it being connected to the story of Romulus and Remus, the twin brothers in Roman mythology who founded Rome. They were the great-nephews of King Emulus and sons of the god Mars. Viewing them as a potential challenge to his reign, King Emulus commanded their execution, leaving them abandoned on the shores of the Tiber River to face their demise. They would be saved by the god of the Tiber River, Tiberinus, who left them in a cave to be raised by a she-wolf. They were later adopted by a shepherd named Faustulus. This all relates back to Lupercalia, as the cave that the boys were initially raised in was named Lupercal. The cave, which would have been found at Palatine Hill, is where ritualistic sacrifices were performed by the Luperci, the priests of the Roman god Faunus. Here, a male goat and a dog were sacrificed. Following the ritualistic blood sacrifice, 2 Luperci would come forward to the altar. Their foreheads would be anointed with blood from the sacrificial knife, then cleansed with wool soaked in milk, after which they were expected to laugh. For some reason. Following this, the Luperci would then run around Rome before returning to the cave. Another aspect of the festival was the drawing of women's names. After the ritual, some men would select a woman's name at random from a jar, pairing themselves with the chosen woman for the entirety of the festival. The festival would continue to be held for many years, until it would be banned, but we'll get to that at a later point in the video. The backstory behind St. Valentine can get a bit muddy, and there are multiple versions about his life. Most historians look at 2 St. Valentines that are mentioned throughout history, St. Valentine of Rome and St. Valentine of Terni, but it is also possible that they could be the same person. With the story being hard to accurately pinpoint, I'll describe a popular version of the tale before exploring an alternative option. Saint Valentine lived during the 3rd century and was a patron saint of lovers, epilepsy, and beekeepers. During his time, the Roman emperor was Claudius II. He was ruthless and involved Rome in many wars. In order to support his military campaigns, he required many soldiers to bolster the strength of his armies. Naturally, joining the army at the time wasn't particularly popular, so there weren't enough men to sustain these wars. Claudius blamed his lack of soldiers on the idea that men didn't want to join his army because of their investment with their wives and children. To prevent this from happening in the future, Emperor Claudius put a ban on all marriages. Saint Valentine disagreed with this and continued to perform marriages throughout Rome. When he was eventually caught, he was arrested and taken to Judge Asterius. Asterius was viewed as harsh and cruel, and he had many Christians held in his prison. One day, Asterius was talking to Valentine when he asked him to heal his daughter, who had been born blind. Asterius brought Valentine to his daughter, where he laid his hands over her eyes and prayed to God. Her vision was restored, and in return, Asterius freed all the Christians held in his prison. Enraged, Claudius now ordered that both men should be executed by beheading. Now, according to legend, before his execution, Valentine wrote a goodbye letter to Asterius' daughter, who he had befriended, and signed it, "From your Valentine." He would then be executed outside the Flaminian Gate on February 14th, 270 AD. This story of Valentine's life is commonly shared, but there is another version of events of what his life was like. In this account, Emperor Claudius had been persecuting Christians, and Valentine was arrested for evangelizing, not performing secret marriages. The story then follows closely to what was shared in the story before, until it changes from after Valentine healed Asterius' daughter. After this, Asterius freed him, and Valentine continued to evangelize. For this, he was arrested again. This time, he was taken directly to Emperor Claudius himself. At first, the emperor liked Valentine, but when Valentine tried to preach to Claudius, he became enraged and ordered his execution. Valentine would be beaten by clubs and then executed. It's possible that the two stories could be combined, and that Saint Valentine was arrested for both performing secret marriages and preaching Christianity, but due to spotty records, this can't be verified. Over time, Christianity continued to spread and started holding far more power than it did during the 3rd century. Just a little over 100 years after Valentine's death, Theodosius I became the Roman Emperor during the years 379 to 395 AD. Starting in 381, he began the persecution of pagans by issuing the Theodosian decrees, which effectively was a ban on paganism and all of its aspects. This included banning all of the pagan holidays and festivals, and Lupercalia was forever changed. Animal sacrifices were now banned, and this was a core part of the original festival. The festival would still be held by a few Christians, but it was likely just a shadow of the original festival, with most of the ideas and symbols probably changed to be far less violent and graphic than it had initially been. In the following century, the Roman Empire would break up and continue to be weakened, while Christianity, and by extension, the Pope, would grow its influence. By the year 496 AD, the Roman Empire had fallen, and the current Pope was now Pope Gelasius I. Pope Gelasius was not happy with the continued use of Lupercalia and sought to end its use for good. He banned the practice of Lupercalia and decided to make February 14th a day to celebrate St. Valentine instead. At this point, Valentine's Day was likely far different than how we celebrate it now, but as the centuries passed by, it would slowly morph to become something closer in resemblance to what we practice now. We've all heard the phrase lovebirds, with it being described as people who are in a romantic relationship. It's possible that the origins of this term could go back to Valentine's Day. You see, medieval birdwatchers observed that birds began selecting their mates in mid-February, and they decided to name February 14th as this specific date. This idea spread and began appearing in literature from this time. The first known person to write about this concept was Geoffrey Chaucer. Chaucer was an English poet and author during the 1300s, and his poem, Parliament of Fowls, is thought to be the earliest documented connection of Valentine's Day with romantic love. The poem is about a narrator who dreams they are in a magnificent garden. In the garden, there are a variety of birds who gather in the garden on Valentine's Day to choose their mates. The exact line states, "For this was on St. Valentine's Day, when every fowl comes there his mate to take." The idea of birds choosing their mates on Valentine's Day would later be included in Shakespeare's play, A Midsummer Night's Dream. In the play, a character states, "Good morrow, friends, St. Valentine's is past. Begin these word birds but to couple now." The holiday is again referenced in the 4th act of Hamlet, when Ophelia is singing, "Tomorrow is St. Valentine's Day, all in the morning betime, and I am a maid at your window, to be your Valentine." During their times, Shakespeare and Chaucer were extremely popular and influential, and the mention of Valentine's Day in their work likely helped spread the holiday to the common population. One of the common ways we celebrate Valentine's Day is the exchanging of Valentine's Day cards. The earliest forms of these cards started appearing in the 1500s and began to be more common in countries like Great Britain throughout the 1600s. It would become a widespread tradition in the 1700s, with people making their own handmade cards, which they would then give to friends and loved ones. The earliest manufactured Valentine's Day cards appeared in the 1830s, and the industry would only continue to grow. Hallmark would start to produce Valentine's Day cards in 1916, and today, 145 million cards are exchanged, making it the holiday with the second highest number of greeting cards exchanged, only behind Christmas. The history of Valentine's Day is a great example of how cultures and practices can change from time to time. From its origins in the Roman festival Lupercalia, to being a replacement excuse for the Catholic Church, to the holiday it is now, Valentine's Day has had many different evolutions, and its changes are extremely fascinating. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, if you have a disturbing moment or story in history that you'd like to be covered, please feel free to share it in the comment section below.